But I think the net zero issue is an interesting one, because the issue for the broadcasters should not be the science of global warming. I'm not a scientist, but everything I see is pretty well understood that the science is pretty strong, more than pretty strong, that the planet is warming, and that man-made, person-made activity is one of the major, if not the major contributor. I think that is not something the broadcasters need to debate on a regular basis. The issue is what policies follow from that. And on that, we're still a one-party state as well. Because the issue, and this is when broadcasters and journalists in general should have been doing their job, which is that in this very building, in this Parliament, in this Palace of Westminster, there was near unanimity on going for net zero. In fact, I'm not sure there was even ever a debate on it. It just became the law of the land. It is when there's a consensus like that, is when journalists should do their job. And the only decent interview I did in my brief 8 nights at GB News, seemed more like 8 years at the time, was I interviewed Mr. Sunak when he was Chancellor. And I asked him about the cost of net zero. Had the Treasury costed it? And he couldn't answer the question. And at the end of the interview, he said, no one's ever asked me that before. Why not? That, to my mind, was what I saw being the purpose of GB News, was to ask questions others weren't. But that question is really, it is now on the agenda because it's heat pumps have to be paid for and insulation, so it's become an issue, particularly after the rise in gas prices with the war in Ukraine. But broadcasters didn't do that. They just went along with it, and they shut down anybody who wanted to raise the cost. Now, of course, the politicians are, you can't wake up in the morning without some government somewhere reneging on its net zero targets. The Scottish government did it last week. So I think that's where broadcasters have been poor, and where they're part of their assumptions, their view of the world is shared by the political establishment. And it is not our job to mirror the concerns or the assumptions of the political establishment.